It was supposed to be the best day of the year, my birthday. The weather was perfect. The backyard was beautifully decorated with string lights, colorful balloons, and a table full of food. Friends and family were laughing. Kids were running around the lawn, and music filled the air. Everything was flawless, until she showed up. Karen. Every neighborhood has one, the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA rules, armed with a clipboard and an unshakable sense of superiority. Ours was no exception. She lived 2 houses down and had been a constant headache since the day we moved in. As soon as the music started, I spotted her marching down the street like a soldier on a mission. Her oversized sunglasses couldn't hide her frown, and her dog trotted beside her, looking equally unimpressed. She stormed through the open gate without knocking, waving her phone like a badge of authority. "Excuse me," she barked. "Who authorized this party? There are noise limits in this neighborhood, and I can hear your music from my living room." Everyone turned quiet. My friends exchanged looks, and my dad tried to stay polite. "Ma'am, it's just a small birthday gathering," he said calmly. "We'll turn the volume down a bit." But Karen wasn't done. "You didn't submit a party request to the HOA. And those balloons, do you even know they're a fire hazard?" I stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Karen, it's my birthday. We're just celebrating for a couple of hours. Everything's under control," she scoffed. "Under control? I've seen the parking situation outside. Cars on the curb, music blasting. This is chaos. I'm calling the HOA president." At that point, guests started whispering and chuckling. She looked furious that no one was taking her seriously. But I knew this wasn't over. Karen didn't come just to complain. She came to cause a scene. I took a deep breath and decided to stay calm. After all, it was my day. I wasn't about to let her ruin it. Still, I could tell from her narrowed eyes that she was planning something. And I was right. Within the next 10 minutes, Karen's little visit would turn from an argument into total chaos, something none of us would ever forget. Karen didn't leave. Instead, she stood there in the middle of my backyard like she owned the place. Her phone was glued to her ear, and she started pacing while muttering about HOA violations and noise complaints. I tried to ignore her and went back to cutting the cake. My friends cheered and sang the birthday song, but Karen's shrill voice kept cutting through the fun like nails on a chalkboard. Suddenly, she shouted, "Yes, Jim! He's got at least 20 people over. No permits, no HOA approval, loud music, and cars all over the street." She turned to me, smirking. "The HOA president will be here any minute. You'll regret ignoring the rules." My cousin laughed. "Lady, it's a birthday, not a concert." That made Karen's face turn bright red. "Watch your tone, young man. This community has standards." The tension was building, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me angry. "Karen," I said calmly, "you're trespassing. This is private property. You're welcome to leave and take your attitude with you." That hit a nerve. She gasped like I had insulted her ancestors. "Trespassing? How dare you? I'm part of the HOA board. I have every right to inspect violations." My friend whispered, "She's losing it," and another pulled out a phone to record. Karen noticed and snapped, "Delete that video right now! You don't have permission to film me." But it was too late. She started ranting about respect for authority, waving her arms so wildly that she almost knocked over the punch bowl. Then, as if the drama gods demanded it, she stepped backward straight into the cake table. Splat! The sound was glorious. The entire cake collapsed under her hand, and a wave of frosting splattered across her blouse. Gasps filled the air, then laughter exploded. Karen froze, eyes wide with disbelief. You ruined my outfit!" she screamed. I raised an eyebrow. "You crashed my birthday, remember?" Her lip trembled. She looked around, realizing every phone was recording. The woman who loved embarrassing others had just become the star of her own. Humiliation. Before I could say another word, she stomped toward the gate, frosting still dripping from her sleeve. But she wasn't done yet. She turned back and shouted, "This isn't over! You'll all pay fines for this!" We all just laughed harder. Karen stormed off, but something told me she wasn't going to let it go that easily. And sure enough, the next day proved me right. She had a new plan, and it was even crazier than before. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen notifications on my phone. The neighborhood group chat was on fire. Karen had posted a long, angry message calling my birthday. Party a public disturbance. and claiming our guests had vandalized community property. She even attached blurry photos, probably taken from her, window of parked cars, and a few empty cups near the curb. These residents think the HOA rules don't apply to them, she wrote. I will be filing a formal complaint. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. My mom, however, wasn't amused. She tagged the HOA president, the neighborhood security group, and even the city council, she said, shaking her head. She's really going all out. That afternoon, I saw her outside pacing in her driveway, phone in hand, looking furious. Her poor dog was just sitting beside her, bored out of its mind. I decided to confront her, not to fight, but to set things straight. When I walked over, she immediately crossed her arms. Here to apologize? She asked smugly. Actually, I said, smiling, I came to remind you that my property is private. What happens in my backyard isn't your business unless it violates noise, ordinances, which it didn't. Karen's eyes narrowed. Oh, I know my rights. I've already sent the HOA a report. You'll be hearing from them soon. Good, I said, because I spoke to the HOA president this morning. He said you filed 7 complaints this year, all of which were dismissed, including the one about kids riding bikes too fast. Her mouth dropped. That's not true. Oh, it's very true, I said, holding up my phone. He told me the HOA is actually considering reviewing your behavior for harassment. Seems you've made quite a name for yourself. For once, she didn't have a comeback. Her face turned pale, and she started glancing around, nervously as a few neighbors peeked from their porches, watching the exchange. Then I added, also, those videos from yesterday? They're kind of viral in the neighborhood chat. Everyone loved your dramatic cake dive. Her jaw clenched. You people are bullying me. No one's bullying you, I replied. You walked into someone's private event, caused chaos, and fell into a cake. That's on you. Tears welled up in her eyes. For the first time, Karen didn't look angry. She looked embarrassed. She turned away, muttering something under her breath before storming back inside. I thought that was the end of it. But that night, there was a knock on my door. A uniformed officer stood outside holding a clipboard. Karen had officially called the police. The officer at the door looked more tired than serious. We got a call about a disturbance and possible trespassing incident. Yesterday, he said politely. Mind if I ask what happened? I nodded and invited him in. Oh, that would be about my birthday party and our neighbor, Karen. As I explained what happened, the officer's expression shifted from confusion to barely suppressed laughter. When I got to the part about her falling into the cake, he actually smirked. So, just to confirm, he said, jotting notes, she entered your property without permission and caused the disturbance herself. Exactly, I replied. I've even got it all on video. My friend pulled up the recording and handed it to him. He watched a few seconds, Karen storming in, yelling about HOA rules, slipping into the cake, and shook his head with a grin. Yeah, he said, this isn't a police matter. If anything, she's the one trespassing. A few minutes later, he left with a friendly, happy late birthday. We laughed, thinking it was finally over. But as always, Karen had one last act of drama left in her. The next day, a folded letter appeared in my mailbox, an official HOA complaint, written entirely by Karen. But stapled to it was another note, handwritten by the HOA president himself. Disregard this nonsense. We've warned Karen about abusing HOA channels. She's been temporarily suspended from her duties. I couldn't believe it. The HOA had finally had enough of her. I walked outside, letter in hand, just as Karen was coming down the street. She stopped when she saw me holding it. You can't ignore official complaints, she snapped. That's against HOA protocol. I smiled. Actually, it seems you're the one being ignored. The HOA president says you're suspended for harassment. Her face went white. Suspended? He can't do that! Oh, he did. And honestly, it's probably for the best. Maybe now you'll get a break from monitoring everyone else's business. The neighborhood had gathered again, some people pretending to check their mail just to witness the moment. Karen's eyes began to glisten, her voice cracking. You people never respected me. I was just trying to keep this place in order. I took a step closer and said calmly, you don't keep order by ruining people's happiness. You do it by respecting their space, especially on private property. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned away, wiping her eyes. "Maybe I went too far," she muttered before walking home quietly. For once, the street was peaceful again. The next weekend, a few neighbors surprised me with another mini celebration. This time, no uninvited guests. We joked about Cakegate and toasted to finally living in a Karen-free zone. As the sun set, I couldn't help but smile. The best birthday gift I got wasn't the party. It was watching Karma serve the cake right back to her.